and welcome to the Lillian McMorris Show. The topic of our show today is relationships. I did some asking around of friends, associates, neighbors, even myself. Don't get me wrong, I always put myself in some of the questions that I ask. And one of those is, what does it take to make a good relationship or a long-standing relationship and or marriage? And we will be talking in this show to a relationship specialist who's going to give us some pointers on how you can perhaps work on having a long-standing marriage and or relationship. But I would like to highlight a couple that I absolutely love. And I may be it may be because I do love them and know them. But this thing stands 43 years. This couple has been married 43 years. Now let's add on the 2 years where they met each other and became engaged and did all that romantic stuff and then tied the knot, and they're still together. Please meet. This is Joe and Marguerite Jones. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. And I don't, and I said I'll be careful delving into the personal aspects, but 43 years, you guys have faced just about anything that one could think of. And I think the first question that I would like to ask is, what kept you together so long?
Well, first of all, we really love each other. And not only do we love each other, we like each other. And the number one thing I think that I always say to him is trust. We have a lot of trust in each other. And the second thing is, of course, to me, compatibility. And that's not just physically, that's also emotionally, intellectual. And it just has, and when I say compatibility, it means sharing. We share in almost everything that we do. A lot of times you have different people have different chores that they do. Mm-hmm. He does everything. He does everything that I do. That's laundry, that's cooking, whatever. And that's one thing. And there's a multitude of things that we've done to keep our relationship together.
How many children do you have?
We have one son.
One son.
One son.
Okay. Now, in those years, what was the stress level? Because you're raising a child, and I want to get into what both of you do as individuals, because in growing, you grow as a family, a unit, you grew in your work, you grew, and now you're both retired together, all of this together. So one son. And Marguerite, what is it that you did or do?
Okay, before moving here from the San Francisco Bay Area, I was associate publisher of a legal newspaper in San Francisco. Okay. And I just retired from the Las Vegas Review-Journal as the call center manager for several of their publications. Okay.
Joe?
I actually worked in the computer industry in San Francisco Bay Area and Silicon Valley, and retired from a large company there before moving to Las Vegas about 12 years ago. Okay. And since coming to Las Vegas, although I initially, both of us initially didn't know if we were going to continue working, but we were still energetic and ready to stay engaged. So I looked around, and from what I could see on the daily news in Las Vegas 10 years ago or so, was they had just a constant influx of families into the valley. Right. And it seemed like the news constantly had segments on talking about the need to build more schools and to hire more teachers.
Now, I noticed that's one thing that you two have in common as well. You're both very active within our community. Yes. Share with me some of the organizations that I know you mentor. I could probably tell your story, Joe, but I want you to share with everybody. And Marguerite, you have since, especially since being retired, really gotten more active within our community.
Well, basically, I've been really active with the Sisters Network, which you know is an African American Breast Cancer Association. And since I retired, I've become a little more active with them.
Correct.
And pretty much that's been it. When I was working, I was involved in a lot of different, pretty much work-related organizations.
But like you say, you guys do a lot of things together. So I know a lot of our activities with 100 Black Men of Las Vegas and other things that Joe does, I always see the two of you.
Yeah, we're real compatible. We enjoy doing a lot of the same things. It's pretty much been that way since the beginning because, I try to keep it exciting. We love to travel.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Didn't you just come back from this long exotic trip?
Yeah, we just came back from, in August, I believe. We just come back from a 3-week trip to China, to 3 of their major cities, and also it included a cruise along the Yangtze River and stopped at a number of ports, along with maybe 200 other folks like us who love an Afrocentric experience and travel to see cultures and exchange.
Well, see, that's good for you too, because you continue to educate.
Yes,
because you were an educator. You would tell us a little about your background, and we'll fill in why I said what I just said.
Yes. Well, once I settled in here in Las Vegas, I decided, based on the news, that the area that had the greatest demand was in education. And I knew coming into the Valley that I did not want to get engaged in the computer industry anymore. I had a lifelong experience with and had enough of that. So I decided to see if I would enjoy working with kids. So I became a substitute teacher.
Right.
And after doing that for about 1.5 years, I decided I want to be involved on a more regular basis. So I signed up for a long-term assignment. The next thing led to me signing up to go through a program at UNLV, and I got a master's in education over at UNLV. So I switched from a business background for many years
to an education background.
Education because I was at a stage of my life where I wanted to give back.
Right, and see, and that's a great segue into what you do with the 100, mentoring, our kids within our community.
Yes, and that's one of the things that I do. I'm active in the 100 Black Men of Las Vegas. I'm currently the education chair. We have 3 schools that we mentor at, and one happens to be our school, the 100 Academy of Excellence, and I mentor there on Tuesdays as well as in our Saturday program where we emphasize and teach.
Because I notice sometimes even when you come out on Saturday, you'll say, I got to rush, I got to get back, because you two have something to do. And the other thing, I'm going to take this segment just a little longer because I want to talk a little bit more about relationships and what you two do together. Number one, your date nights. I mean, I absolutely love it. I'll be in the club and here come you two holding hands like teenagers. I mean, this is fabulous. After 43 years of marriage, you're still back there in the corner making out. Now, see, I come up to the bar and I find you. So, that is just amazing to me. Like you say, you like to keep things exciting. So, Marguerite, I'm going to ask you, what do you do to keep this tall, handsome man, always right there?
Well, you know what? We've always enjoyed each other from the beginning, and it's pretty much we do everything together. Not everything, but a lot of things. Like, there's a lot of events that you'll see, even travel, you'll mostly see women on these trips we go to. And they're not single, but they will usually say, my husband doesn't like to travel, or my significant other doesn't like to travel. But he likes doing everything that I like to do. Like, sometimes I'll get a call and they'll say, let's have a girls' night. And he's like, I'm going too, but I enjoy him going. No, I enjoy him. I actually enjoy him going, So my girlfriends will tag along. Like, we have one girlfriend that went with us somewhere about a week ago. But I guess,
what would be your advice to young women now? There are so many young women who just don't know how to keep that relationship together, exciting, non-confrontational. I mean, everybody has a disagreement. That's a normality. But it's how you solve it. And
it's also, that's communication. And communication is really the key in a relationship and in our relationship. I mean, everything's not going to always be the way you want it to be, but you have to talk it through. And I think the way we talk to each other is very important. I mean, you can tell somebody that they've done something wrong, but have a positive spin to it. It's not like, oh, you were so stupid, you did that. That doesn't make sense. Whereas you can say that same thing in another tone.
Because I even notice how Joe speaks even to the other 100. He doesn't put them down,
Yeah.
the other brothers. You know, he said, well, I have an idea. Why don't we try?
Right. And that's pretty much what we do in our relationship. I mean, it has its moments. I mean, I think I'm probably the most vocal one, but we communicate, and communicating, I think, is very important. Also, patience. You got to be patient, especially when you first meet somebody. It's not going to always be the way you want it to be. And but I think communicating is really very, very important.
Okay.
I'd like to add to that.
Okay.
Before you leave that, there's some, in my mind, there were always some key steps or guidelines one needed to be able to come prepared to address when we first started our relationship.
Okay.
Kind of knew this going in. Communication is extremely important, but in addition to that, you needed to have patience. We needed to really embrace the concept of sharing if we were going to go forward and make a long-term commitment.
And you certainly
early on.
have, so that must have worked.
It did work, and that comes because you're signing up for a partnership, and the partnership needs to be equal if it's going to work, and you can't fall in the trap as a male doing some of the things that traditionally males have thought they had the right to do.
Okay.
To be in total control of the other person through
You're
maybe
hitting on
verbal
some topics.
abuse
That's what
or force or physical abuse. That won't work.
Right.
You have to come to the relationship as equals,
Right.
and then find out where your compatibility or build your compatibility over time.
And that you have done, and I
Well, we've done
applaud
that.
you. I
Yes.
applaud you. Our topic for this segment is the secret to longevity in a marriage. We've been talking to Joe and Marguerite Jones, who have been married for 43 years. They've been together for 45 years. And some of their secrets to this longevity, and compatibility is one of them. Being able to be patient with the other. Communication is always the key. You have to like each other. I mean, I may be in love with you, but do I like you? You have to like each other. Trust. Trust is a huge, huge segment to that. This is a success story, a growing success story that I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much, Joe and Marguerite, for being my guests and talking about longevity in your relationship and in marriage.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure, Lillian.
Thank you, Joe.
But I must say one last thing.
Okay, one last thing.
Me and Mrs. Jones got a thing going on.
I love it. And on that note, him and Mrs. Jones, the thing has lasted quite a long time. You stay tuned. We're going to come back and talk to a relationship therapist. Our topic of discussion, relationships, the longevity of relationships, what it takes to have a long relationship and or marriage. And we'll talk about the difference between the two. Now, in an earlier segment, we had a wonderful couple with us, Joe and Marguerite Jones, who have been married for 43 years and been together for 45 years. And we talked about some of the things that brought them together and that kept them together and what they had to work on for continuous romance, continuous being able to be with each other, and no one getting mad and just walking away. And I'm going to tell you a little, they had to like each other. That was one of the things that came out. Trust, compatibility, sharing, even sharing the chores. It's no, that's woman's work or that's man work. They do things together and have done that. That's how they've been able to stay together for so long. They're a success story, and the reason being is communication is the key. The ability to communicate with each other, whether it's good times or controversial times. And of course, having patience with each other. Now, that was them. And they've lived this life and are living this life. At this time, I would like to introduce our relationship specialist. And this is Dr. Wendy Dearborn. Welcome,
Hi,
Doctor.
Thank you, Lillian, so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming. Thank
truly
you.
an honor to be here.
Oh,
It really
you
is.
are so
Thank
sweet.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's talk about relationships. I mean, ooh, she says, okay. No, let me get one thing straight. What's the difference between a relationship and a marriage?
The difference between a relationship and being married, for me, as a choice expert, and especially, it is all about commitment.
Gotcha.
What is it that you are truly prepared to commit to the relationship? Many people, they'll get into a relationship.
Correct.
And it's all nice, you know, them endorphins and caffeines running high, you know, ooh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. But when all of that, when all of that subsides, and
What's
it does
left?
chemically, it's what's left. Now, when you have a marriage and you are married, the commitment states that you have to work with what's left.
Okay.
And so the true difference really is commitment.
Commitment.
It's commitment.
So how does one go from all of that happiness and endorphins and some of the pitfalls? What's the key in there?
As the couple who were here before, it truly is about communication. In addition to that, I would say for both, it's Joe and who?
Marguerite.
Joe and Marguerite. I would say individually they know themselves.
Okay.
If you're having trouble with yourself, it makes it very difficult for you to commit to even a relationship, but to a marriage.
Now,
it makes
in the
it very
communication, this is one thing we didn't bring up with our couple, but I know that they have this because I know them personally, is that very, very special word of respect.
Oh, yes.
Because our young people today, unfortunately, the first thing comes out of their mouth is what comes out of their mouth. And words hurt.
They do. They do. They do. Actually, you say that, and I'm going to digress just slightly here. You say this. I talk to the women at Shade Tree once a week.
All right.
And I did this whole thing about words. And I sort of said to them, you know, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Words can tear your soul apart.
Absolutely.
And once you've spoken
you can't
the word,
take it back.
you cannot put it back. But as you were saying, respect is huge. And not only of each other, but of yourself. If you don't have that innate respect, that innate love, the kindness, the ability to share for you, you're not going to be able to do it for anybody else. You have to know how to do it for you.
What should we watch out for?
In a relationship?
In a marriage. Let's go with marriage.
What you should watch out for is taking each other for granted.
There you go.
And not expressing yourself. Because I heard Marguerite say, she's the more vocal one. I did hear that.
Yes, she's still in our studio audience, so that's why she looked over there. She is the more vocal one. Yes.
And it's about being able to express yourself. If you're not able to express what your needs, your wants are, and it's the little things, it's not the big things. Usually the big things get sorted out.
Okay.
But it's the little things like, baby, why you always leave the cup on the spoon on the counter?
Right.
You know, and 20 years later...
You're stirring your coffee, you leave a little coffee round on the counter. Why do you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's the little things. Because my thing is, if people don't know what's going on for you, they can't make the changes. They can't implement change.
Okay.
It's also how you put this across. Respect, as you said before, Lillian, is huge.
Right.
You also need to
And
know...
Marguerite brought that up as well.
Yes,
And
yes,
how you speak to each other.
And you also have to pick timing. You know, somebody gets home from work, they're tired.
Don't jump on me when I walk through that door.
Don't talk about, honey, you left the coffee grind on the counter with the spoon.
Right.
Don't do that.
Really right now? Really?
They're not going to hear.
Right.
Listening is huge. Being able to listen.
And that's one
to
thing
your
Joe
partner.
is an excellent listener.
And
let's talk a little bit about the couple you know. 72 years of marriage.
Dave and Ellen. Dave passed away a couple of years ago, but they had been married 72 years.
Their children were senior citizens.
They got grandkids.
Yeah.
They got grown grandkids at that, great-grandkids.
Yeah.
So they've been married for 72 years.
Oh, mercy.
So as I said to them, you know, what is the key?
Okay.
What is the key?
Uh-huh.
And they said they have never in all their 72 years of marriage, gone to bed angry with each other.
And you know, my first set of foster parents when I was very little, and this is what instilled all the love and everything that I have, because this is who ingrained at that time. And they never yelled at each other. They never called each other out of their name. I can't remember. I remember one disagreement, and Mother chased Daddy around the house with a half a bucket of water to pour water on him because he said something she didn't like. And they ended up laughing about it. I mean, but there was no talking, you know, but they were very ingrained in the church. So they're, you know, they had that innate respect that you get, you know, being spiritually motivated. But
And that's another thing.
yes.
Having that spiritual foundation.
Okay.
And for me, it doesn't matter whether you're Christian, Buddhist, but it matters not. It's having that foundation. Because when there's nothing else left to go to, you can go to that square.
Right.
You can go to that foundational font of spirituality and draw from that well.
Right.
And that too is very important.
Now, how do you handle someone who is very strong-willed, strong-minded, ultimately intelligent, all of those things, and they can't find that partner that is of equal? How does one do that? Because there's a whole lot of people out there that have been separated, divorced for various reasons, and a lot of it, actually, I probably answered my own question, because a lot of it is lack of communication, because you can't talk to that person. Right, okay.
Okay, all right. I think, Lillian, the biggest question to ask is yourself in a relationship. What am I wanting? Not what do I want? What am I wanting? I-N-G. The ing takes you inside into the imagination.
I like that, okay.
So you ask yourself, what am I wanting? And you have to be, when you ask that question of self, you have to be totally honest. Totally honest. What am I wanting? Once you have what you're wanting, then you can start with, what does it look like? What does it sound like? Or what does he look like? What does it sound like? What does he smell like? What does he taste like? What does he feel like?
Right.
And you have to ask yourself those questions with total honesty.
Okay.
And once you start answering those questions, you will be able to then, for
Because
self,
they could be the little things like, I don't like the way your toes look when you wake up in the morning. I mean, something just as stupid as that can cause you to be gone.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Very, very important. Very, very
Okay,
important. Very important.
where can we reach you, Dr. Wendy? Because I'm sure there's some people out there that want to know a little more about what we talked about. We should actually probably do an hour on this one, but you know? Yes.
They can reach me at area code 702-425-8589. So 425-8589.
That's Dr. Wendy Dearborn, and we're continuing our discussion on relationships. And we were talking about the secret to longevity in a marriage. And hopefully by watching both of these segments, you've got something out of it. You can always reach Dr. Wendy at 702-425-8589. This is the Lillian McMorris Show, and we have had a ball with this one.
If you want to develop a good relationship, you have to choose it. And when you develop a good relationship, it locks into something, or it starts a foundation of something. Like down here, you have your foundation. And your foundation along here is typically based upon things that have happened to you in childhood. Things that have happened to you as you've grown up. When you get to the age of majority, and I say this because prior to the age of majority, you are under parental rule. And not only parental rule, you are under the rule of teachers, guardians, coaches, you name it. You're under everybody's rule except your own. After the age of majority, whatever that happens to be with the country that you're in, you then start making choices for yourself. And the irony is, up until the point of majority, somebody's always telling you what you have to do, why you have to do it, the whole 9 yards. You hit the age of majority, and they're like, Patel! What you asking me for? No, but this is how it goes. No, you're grown now. You're an adult. You need to handle that by yourself. Handle your business. and you cut loose. It's like you're swimming in this sea of choices. And it's like, well, what do I do? Well, you know what you do is you mess up. That's what you do. And that's what choices allow you to do. Choices allow you to mess up so that you can grow. Choices allow you to mess up so you can grow and know what it is that you are wanting for you. Choices allow you to become who you are today. And choices will allow you to become who you are going to be tomorrow. So with that, I have the Lego bricks here. We build our lives one choice at a time. You know, it's like you can only eat or swallow one small morsel at a time. You try to swallow the whole thing, you're going to choke. And so it is with our choices. We build our lives one choice at a time. You want love, build it. You want prosperity, build it. One choice at a time. Make your choice and watch your life build. Make your choices and watch your life build. You can secure it by making good choices for yourself. And how do you make good choices for yourself? You do so with clarity. You do so with clarity. How do you get clear? You get clear by asking yourself what it is that you are wanting. What it is that you are wanting in this moment. You see, whatever has happened to you in the past, you cannot change it. You cannot change it. You can't even rewrite it. You have to write a new chapter. So, you know, if something happened to you, say if we say this is, the bottom row is your formative years. The second row is your teens. And so it works its way up until you hit your middle age or 50, 60, 70 or whatever. If something happened to you in your 20s and you decide, right, I'm going to go back, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to change it so that my life will be all right. Well, your life's kind of all right. Everything that you've built here is solid. Perhaps what you are wanting to do, or perhaps what you may need to do, instead of going back and digging up what's happened to you, perhaps you want to just focus on what it is that you are truly wanting for your life. You see, because if you go back, what happens is you're going to go down here. You want something down here. You have to destroy everything that you've built in order to access it. And then guess what? You have to start rebuilding your life. Nothing wrong with rebuilding. But as far as Dr. Wendy's concerned, why rebuild something that has already been built? Why not get clarity around what it is that you are wanting so you can build from here the life that you want to live?